So this is philosophy class number 5, right? How many of you watched the other video? Well, don't all chime in at once. Have you watched them?
What?
Rosario? Are you saying
Rocio.
Rocio.
Yeah.
Have you watched any of the videos?
The ones that I wasn't here yet.
Then the answer is yes. How about you, sir?
I saw the first one, I didn't see the second one.
Okay, watch them all. They're good. You're in them, right? At least the backs of your heads are. Have you seen them?
Not everything.
Have you seen any of them?
Not everyone. I mean, not everyone.
That's another way of saying no. No, I have not. Watch them. There's stuff in there, okay? We're gonna see you. We gotta have some assignments in here, okay? Let's give you an assignment right now. Your last assignment. Does anybody have a question? Has anybody not gotten a grade for their Euthyphro assignment? And the reason I say this is because, and for anybody watching, turn it in if you have it. I'm gonna shut it down so that it does have to come to an end. You can't just let them stack up to the end. So I'm gonna put an end on it. Okay, I'll make the end of this week, okay? How's that? Get it in because I've got a few of you have not turned in your assignment. That's a grade. The next one, the next grade is going to be Meno, M-E-N-O, and that's the next dialogue in the book called Plato's 5 Dialogues. Okay, normally we've been talking, and we're going to get to it today, about philosophy, you know, where we say philosophy is what? It's a level of wisdom. Then we go, what's wisdom? You go, well, it's knowledge rightly applied to its proper end. And then from there you go, well, what's knowledge? And then we went, well, knowledge has to do with belief, right? What kind of belief? Belief that's justified. And then we said, well, what else is there? And then how about truth? So we came up with this idea that knowledge is justified true belief. And then we went to, well, what do you mean by truth? Because we had already discussed the different types of justification. We even mentioned warrant, okay? So if Tyler McNabb, my buddy, ever hears this, he goes, well, what about warrant? We mentioned it, okay? And we'll probably mention it more because I like warrant. But we're on truth. We're not going to mention that right now. We're going to talk a little bit about the 5 dialogues because there are 2 components to this class. There's the analytical side, which is analytic philosophy, doing of philosophy, asking the questions like, what is knowledge? You know, what is the world made up of? What does it mean to exist? What are ethics? All that good stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about the historical component about the people who did this, okay? And we were discussing Euthyphro. We talked about the Euthyphro dilemma. You know, is something pious because the gods want it, or do the gods want it because it is pious, right? We talked about the middle ground, talking about that because God is good, right? His nature. Okay, but now let's just talk a little bit about Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Just you know, I'm not going to get too far into context with this. I want you to watch the Crucible of Civilization. I put it on in the Panopto folder. Have you guys, did you watch it?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
It's great. It's really well made, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you probably learned a little bit about Socrates, about the culture in which they grew up.
Yeah, actually I realized I want to travel to Greece. Actually, it's just I have fun with my boyfriend. We want to go there because it's like kind of a lot of history just for sports and for a lot of different kind of things.
For sports, yeah, the Olympic
Everything.
Games. Good, yes.
Start there.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, actually.
Everything
science,
started there?
Yeah. Just
I
all
thought
the
it
things
started a
about
little closer
knowledge.
down in Africa. Okay, but no, the Western civilization. I'm giving you a
Yeah.
hard time on that one. Okay, yeah, and so part of it is because it talks a lot about Socrates, talks about, you know, Plato and Aristotle in there, and it gives you the cultural context in which they lived, right? Did it talk about democracy?
Yeah, it appears there. It just they found it. I think it was Cleisthenes.
Yes, yes.
He found democracy.
Right, yes. Yes, and that's great. Is she the only one that's watched this? You watch it, what'd you think?
I think it was slanted a lot towards the Athenians and gives them way more credit than they actually deserve.
For democracy?
For democracy and for everything else.
For everything else?
The Athenians were known on the Greek peninsula bigger bullies than Sparta because they kept trying to subvert every other city-state into a democracy like them.
Okay.
Proxy wars like the Mycenaean Wars, their struggles with Lycurgus, who actually invented a better system than they did, because Lycurgus's constitution of Sparta lasted for 800 years.
Interesting, very interesting.
The Athenians.
Catch that? He didn't like it. He thought it was biased towards those stupid Athenians. They get all the credit, right? And you're like, yeah, they were awesome. He's like, well, I beg to differ. Well, you know what? That's the nature of Hollywood, right? A little slanted. Good, but it gives you a little. Point is, gave you a context, right?
Right.
This is and I'm glad you mentioned this because we're a couple thousand years past that, aren't we? So making videos about these guys is rather hard, correct? I mean, we can't even get the truth about our own current governments right now, right? And we're here. I mean, what about China? What about America, right? I saw some crazy video last night, okay? And I'm like, I don't even know what to believe about Edward Snowden, and then all of a sudden, first I'm like, yeah, that guy, let him burn, and then all of a sudden new stuff comes out, I go, yeah, maybe he is a hero, I don't know, I don't know, so it's kind of hard, but what we can say, there's certain things we can say. People existed back then, right? They had governments back then, correct? There were ways they lived back then. There were social structures back then, correct? And so these people are credited with certain things. Socrates was credited with certain things, correct? Whether or not they should have been, for better or worse, correct? So that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is these people really live, and you get a sense that they lived, and they're not just words on a page. Okay, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. We don't even know if we got the clothes together all that right. Did you notice about what, I think it was this video series, what did it say about the potters, the people who painted the pots?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that they were just treated like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Their society wasn't equal.
No, society was not equal.
Just
did everybody have a right to vote?
No.
No.
Something that take my attention was now.
So we call it democracy, but we wouldn't call it democracy. Go ahead.
Something that it was okay, we know, and the most famous things about their society are now the things that they thought that the people without important part of the society are the ones who left all these things.
All the artifacts were the things they created, right?
Yeah, it's just the art, for example, the pottery and all that stuff.
What was on the pottery?
It was what?
The pottery. What did the potters, these low-class individuals, put on
all
there?
the heroes stuff.
They also put a bunch of pornography on there.
Yeah.
A bunch of vulgarity, So you got that stuck out to me. I was like, so, Americans are like, look at this vase with all this Greek writing on it. Doesn't that look nice? Let's put it right up there. An ancient Greek would see that and go, I can't believe that guy's got that trash on his wall, And by trash, not because they come from because it's smut, So did you catch that part?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that interesting. Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
I found that interesting. Talked about the columns and all that, Parthenon.
Yeah.
What was the Parthenon? Do you guys recall?
I think.
Temple to
Yes.
Athena.
Temple to Athena. What's interesting about its construction?
I think it's the biggest one,
Only took
and it has sculpture that is enormous.
The columns are interesting to me. The columns actually, do they closer to the top or wider at the top? Wider at the top. Why do they get wider at the top? So when you look up at it, because of perspective, you know how you look at the road and it looks like it's getting closer? They wanted it to look square as you looked up at it, so because it was higher, the columns would look like they're going in, right? So they mathematically did this, and they moved the columns out. They determined how far out the columns they had to make it, so when you looked at it from below, it looked like they were straight. Do you remember them mentioning that, or am I thinking of a different
I
show?
have it in art history.
You read a different art? Okay, cool. So this one in the video, I apologize, it's not in the video, but cool little tidbit about the Temple of Athena, otherwise known as the Parthenon. It's a marvel. It's, you know.
But it was a part talking about the temple because it was part of when government, actually I don't remember the one with that they say that democracy was at the top.
Yeah.
I don't remember really much, but appears.
Okay. Well, there's a lot in there. So I want you to watch that. So read Meno and watch Crucible of Civilization, narrated by Liam Neeson. Look, guys, if it's narrated by Liam Neeson, it must be true, which not necessarily. It just sounds cool because he has a special set of skills, right? According to the movies. All right. So those are two things I want. And again, with Meno, I want you to bullet point the who, what, where, why, when, and how. I want you to be a little more thorough this time. Some of you guys didn't give me as much as you could. Others gave me more. That's cool. I like overachievers, okay? So do that. Who, what, where, when, why, how, with the, and then I'll come up with some kind of keep you honest assignment for the Crucible of Situations. This is all to keep you honest on your readings and watchings, okay? So, now why did I bring all that up? Because we want to discuss the three main characters of, you know, at least in the context of this class, of philosophy. They're not the first philosophers, guys. I want to let you know that. They're just the first ones we start with. Now, the way it worked back then is you had teachers or philosophers who traveled and they taught and they charged. They were like independent businesses, which I almost kind of wish it was that way. I wish I could go out and get some kind of license to accredit myself, and then I go get students and they could apply my classes to a degree, right? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? And you can say, well, I learned philosophy under this guy, and I didn't have to go to this school because I could go to this guy, and I could go to this guy, and you could handpick your scholars, right? That'd be kind of cool. And I wouldn't have to be hired by a school, right? Because what if the schools all hate what I teach, and so they say, we're not going to hire Christians. I'm a Christian, right? And so U of H, you think they're going to hire me, you know, too easily once they hear I teach from a Christian perspective? The answer is no. Okay? You think you think Harvard's going to go hire me? Right? I mean, maybe, you know, because maybe I don't have the pedigree they want, right? And maybe, again, I'm not, you know, I'm not a secularist. And they will go, yeah, well, he's also just not a great philosopher. Well, what does that mean? Might just mean it might just mean I don't agree with you, right? So in my opinion, I think it'd be great if we were all just independent contractors out there. You take my class, you know, you want to go learn math, you go learn under this mathematician if they'll take you, right? Supply and demand. They could take you on. You're like doctors, you know. You go to a doctor's office, they go, look, I can't take on any more patients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not all doctors work in a hospital. Some are private practitioners. They can only take on so many clients or patients, right? You work at a hospital, then you got to get hired by the hospital, and you got a boss. That's my preference. Well, back in the old day, that's kind of the way it was. And they were called sophists. And these teachers would teach. They'd teach rhetoric, and they would teach, which is the art of speaking and the art of debate, right? And they would teach all these things, politics and the like, and so they're traveling teachers. And so when you read Meno, you'll get a sense about his background. Well, Socrates was kind of one of these, except for he didn't charge, he says, for his teachings. And he did have students who followed him. So now, with the sophists, the goal was not, now I'm going to be very general in this sense, okay? The goal for sophists was not truth, necessarily. The goal was to win the argument. Now there are other philosophers. Did you just pop your wrist?
Yes.
Wow, that was cool.
Oh, thank you.
If you heard that on the video, impressive. Anyway, it's called breaking the fourth wall when you talk to the audience. If you didn't know that. So imagine, your whole goal is not the truth. Your goal is just to win the argument. That's what lawyers do, by the way. Lawyers aren't necessarily about the truth. Even though they may believe their position to be the truth, at the end of the day, the goal is to win the argument, either in the court of public opinion or the literal court. And Socrates kind of stood in the face of that. And so Socrates, in his teaching, what he did was to ask questions. That was his method, was to ask. They call it the Socratic Method. Okay? Socratic Method has to do with question asking. And you'll notice I do that with you. I ask you questions. Most of your philosophy professors are going to do that. The Socratic Method. Why? Because we learned from Socrates to do so. It's a great way to get you to think. Teach you to think rather than what to think. Get you to justify why you believe what you believe. Get the wheels turning. Ask you questions about what you believe to see how strong your belief is, or how strong your, the foundation for what you believe is, right? Anyway, so now this is, by the way, the sophists is where we get the word sophisticated from, or sophistry. And it's an appearance of being smart, but it is not necessarily being correct. Does it make sense? And in my opinion, nowadays, there's a lot of sophistry that is practiced, but not a whole lot of attempts at truth. People are often more interested in appearing smart than being right. And I told you that there are two types of people the other day. Those who always have to be right, and those who always have to be right, correct? Be the second kind, the one who always has to be right, not the one who has to look right, who's sophisticated. Right? That helps. So Socrates, when he uses the Socratic method, that method of questioning, you're going to find out he reveals something to the person who he's questioning. Now Socrates himself would claim, and this is part of one of his dialogues, where he says, he calls himself ignorant. He says that he knows nothing. If he's the wisest of all men, it's because he knows that he knows nothing. Now, I have a problem with that statement. Can anybody tell me why I have a problem with that statement? What? Just say I know that I know nothing.
Because you still know something.
Yeah, you know that you know something. It's a self-referentially defeating argument. One cannot know nothing. I mean, if you do know nothing, you wouldn't know that you don't know nothing, right? I guess you could think you know something, but you would be wrong. But he says, I know that I know nothing. So it's a self-referentially defeating. I had that problem. I think what he's getting at is he's showing a sense of humility about knowledge. Something that I think we should all show. A sense of humility that you could be wrong. Okay? At least go that far. In fact, don't go too much farther than that. If you say you know nothing, then I think you're just being over the top. Okay, and I think Socrates was too. Now, when Socrates wrote all of this stuff, which is false, because Socrates did not write all of this stuff, he didn't write anything, did he? No. So he just taught and questioned. And one of his students was whom? Plato. And Plato wrote his stuff. And he wrote in the form of what? What is the form of literature, the genre, we call it, the type of literature that you are reading? Dialogues. So these are all, I'm just kind of feeding you little Quizlet test questions right now, right? What is the form or genre, we should say, the genre of literature of the Platonic dialogues? Well, they're dialogues. And they read like what? Plays. We can literally turn them into plays. And if you go to YouTube and type in the Meno, you can literally watch a play version of it. Now, how accurate is it? I haven't pulled out my dialogues to see, but my suspicion is probably not that accurate, but close. It's probably getting the point. I would also watch that though, by the way, because there is a video, I should put it up for you, which I think does really well, because they give a geometrical mathematical equation that he has a kid do in the dialogue, and you're looking at it going, I'm not getting this from the way he's doing it, but then they have him do it on the video, and you're like, oh yeah, it's easy. You know, I get that. Of course I get that. You know, doesn't mean we should agree with what Plato is arguing for there, or Socrates. So Plato writes the dialogues. And what are some of the subjects of the dialogues? Well, so far, what was the subject matter of Euthyphro?
Piety.
Piety. And we usually think of piety as godliness, right? Goodness. What is the good, right? So it's kind of, what area of philosophy, out of the three areas of philosophy did we discuss, do you think that discussion belongs to?
Ethics.
Ethics, of course. Thank you. All right. We get to Meno, and when you get to Meno, they're going to start asking a different question. In fact, it starts off. Let's open up the Meno right now, and right away we'll find out a little bit about it. Let's see if I even have my core book. Right here at 70, now you have the intro, which is very important. I like reading the intros to these because they are very informative to the context. It helps tell you a little bit about the context and talks a little bit about the characters, okay? Starts off with Meno saying, can you tell me, Socrates, can virtue be taught? Or is it teachable, but the result of practice? Or is it neither of these, but men possess it by nature or some other way? Okay, we got a couple things going on here. What's the question he asks? Can what?
Can virtue be taught?
Virtue be taught. Okay, cool. What is that?
What is virtue?
Yeah. And again, what does that whole conversation have to do with philosophy out of our three areas of study?
Does it also deal with ethics?
It does, because when we think of virtues, we think of the way we ought to act, right? How things ought to be. And there are virtues that we could talk about and we'll talk about, right? There's courage, would that be a virtue? Stuff like that. Charity, stuff like that. Anyway, you also have vices, right? Which are kind of, and Aristotle is going to end up giving kind of a formula-ish called the golden mean on how to determine what is a virtue and what is a vice, right? Golden mean, we'll talk about that. So it seems to fall in line with, the idea of ethics again. then he talks about, can it be taught? What does having to be taught, what does that have to do with? Teach people things, right? And if you teach people, they must have what? Knowledge. And what does knowledge have to do with it? Or what is the field of study, I should say, in philosophy? Wisdom. But what's the field of study in, there are 3 fields of study in philosophy. Epistemology is what we're looking for. Remember, the Greek word episteme means knowledge. Goes to Latin, which is scientia, which sounds like science, right? Knowledge. But then we get epistemology, the study of knowledge, okay? So we're gonna ask the question, can things be taught? Now, what does it mean? Socrates is gonna ask what this is, you know? And in the Meno, he's gonna, this will be a test question. What does Socrates teach that knowledge is? Okay? This is something I'll ask you. In your little bullet points, the who, what, where, why, when, and how, I wanna know what Socrates thinks knowledge is. So that's a secret question on the video that people will need to figure out, okay? What is knowledge? So he's even going to be talking about that. So when we talk about the 2 types of approaches to philosophy, and there's more than that, but you know, the analytical versus the historical approach, right? You could just sit there and read a bunch of philosophers like Plato, Descartes, Aristotle. You'll learn a lot, yeah. But then you go over to the analytic side, and you could actually just skip all those guys and do philosophy just like you do math without ever learning about Pythagoras, right? Or, you know, the Muslim guy who invented algebra, right? He was a philosopher. You don't know anything about him. You just learned algebra, right? Right. You can do that, or you do both, okay? What we learned from the historical part is they're doing the same thing that the analytics kind of do. They just do it a little differently. The analytics are still asking, what does it mean to be good? The analytics are still asking, what is knowledge, right? And this is one of the things that was started off by these guys asking the question, what do you mean by these? Okay, we do these things today because they did it in the past. Okay, just like the Athenians had a form of democracy that I would probably not flourish under too well, would I? I don't think I'd like it. And even if the Spartans had their own, I certainly wouldn't want to live around the Spartans. Okay? You know, had they not done it first, we wouldn't be where we are today, perhaps. You know? So, anyway, so there you go. So, if we were to ask certain questions about these dialogues, you say, what kind, you know, who are the main characters? You got Socrates, right? You know, Plato's not there. He's not saying, hi, here I am. But he's writing them, right? And Socrates taught Plato. And Socrates is the mouthpiece of Plato in many regards. And Socrates, Plato uses the form of dialogue. These are all questions you would be able to answer, right? Then you'd ask the question, what do the subjects cover in some of these dialogues, such as you go, well, at least in the ones I've read, Euthyphro has to do with piety, and that would be under the field of what? You know, ethics. And what about other ones? Well, there's the Meno, which is, that has to do with virtue, and ask, can virtue be taught? Okay, that's a great question. I almost want to just dedicate this class to can virtue be taught? Or are you born with it? Go ahead.
But when reading the dialogues, are we supposed, like, would you recommend also, like, interpreting their dialogues in our own way, or is there already, like, a set, like, idea on what they're supposed to be, like, referring to?
Well, I want you to know what they meant by what they were saying. That's why context is, you know, important, right? So if we're, you know, if you want to apply these dialogues, right? You know, you want to know what the principles underneath are going to be, okay? Justice, you know, stuff like that. But you got to read them and understand what they meant before you know what they mean to you. You need to know what they meant to them before. Same thing when you're reading scripture, right?
That's what I was referring to. Like,
Yeah.
They can mean one thing, but, like, I mean, how are we supposed to know what they're actually talking about? So,
You know, the funny thing about it is, what do you mean? Do you have like words that you don't understand that?
I don't know, I mean, I'm not referring to, like, the actual, like, context, like literature talk about one thing and we could think it's something.
That's correct. Well, that's why you read it in context. And there, you you got things like the Oracle of Delphi, right? What the heck is the Oracle of Delphi, right? Well, the Oracle of Delphi is a kind of a soothsayer, right? And so in the Apology, Socrates is on trial, and he's saying, "Look, man, people are saying, why is this man out there? And it was the Oracle of Delphi who said this. I set out to prove the oracle wrong." Well, who's this oracle? Well, the Oracle of Delphi was an oracle that historically these people would go to tell the future and stuff like that, and see what, get advice from. One particular person who did this was King Philip. Okay, now that doesn't mean a whole lot to you. Philip is the father of Alexander the Great. Okay, well, knowing a little bit about this is King Philip's history helps you understand a little bit about Alexander the Great, his history. I don't know if this was in that video, was it? No?
No, the oracle, yes, but not the.
So Philip of Macedon was his name. He was Macedonian. He had this wife, Olympia, okay? And she was really beautiful, but she was really freaky. Like, she's part of a snake cult, okay? She was into snakes. And he was afraid that his wife had gotten pregnant by a snake. Now, he thought that she got pregnant with Zeus's child via a snake, because Zeus allegedly used to manifest himself as a snake, okay? And so he went to the oracle. What did the oracle say? Definitely. So Philip hated his son being Alexander. Now, Alexander ends up, having his father assassinated because his lovers assassinated. Now, Alexander was a homosexual. Okay, or there was a guy who...
not really.
There's no evidence? Well, I think we could... If I think it, I have some evidence.
The only piece we have, the evidence that I've seen on that is the Oliver Stone movie, which wasn't really that good.
Wait a minute, are you telling me Oliver Stone has lied to me? I've never seen it. Okay, so allegedly, my sources have suggested, keep in mind, 2,000 years, right? And by the way, it's never been said specifically that he was. It has been majorly alleged, so okay. Knowledge, right? I believe that there is evidence given to me that he was. You think that's bad evidence, and I shouldn't believe it. Should we go with that?
Right.
Okay, we both agree on that. So, Oliver Stone's movie, was it at least fun to watch?
Only the battle scenes.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing else.
Yeah, okay. You're a history buff, huh?
Yes.
Good, I like history buffs. Okay. Point being, that kind of stuff will help illuminate what's going on a little better. If you know what the Oracle of Delphi is, or the Pythian Deme, these legislative bodies and stuff like that. Okay. And so you look up these words, and you'll be amazed at in some of the footnotes. Does this have footnotes? I know the Aristotle book has great footnotes, so there'll be words you look down and you go, hey, and it'll explain what the word is, kind of like the Life Application Bible does, or the study Bibles do, and you go, yeah, that makes sense. Does that help you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, excellent. So where were we? We were on, reading this, you're going to find out, their dialogues, you're going to learn a lot from the context. You're going to learn that Aristotle taught Plato. Plato's going to end up, Aristotle, scratch that. Socrates taught Plato. Plato taught Aristotle. Aristotle also taught Alexander the Great, who is Philip of Macedon's son, who Philip thought was the son of Zeus, okay, from the Oracle of Delphi, who also is mentioned in the Apology in our 5 dialogues. Okay, so it's a nice soap opera, to be sure. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to look at the process of what's going on with the 5 dialogues. They are dialogues, and the genre is going to teach us to do what? Hopefully just ask certain types of questions. Okay? So they start off with, in the Meno, can virtue be taught, or is it something you're born with? Or is it gifted to you somehow? Do you know some good people? You know some bad people? Right?
Mhm.
Are you naturally good? Are you naturally bad? Or can you become good people, virtuous people? I was watching the football game the other day. Did you guys watch the football game? It's on TV. HBO.
Oh, no.
There are only 3 games this year for these guys, and I watched 1/3 of them already. Okay? There's some big guys out there. Can I be as big as those guys? Are you born with athletic ability?
No.
You're not?
What?
If you work for it,
So there's a guy who runs around a 2:01 marathon. I think they just broke the 2-hour marathon, but it was in a controlled environment. 26.2 miles. If I trained for that, you think I could do that?
you can have a part
Did I
of
say it?
talent
Talent.
or things you're born with, but that is not everything. If
But-
you don't improve or work in it, it's just going to be talent,
That's correct, yes.
and that is not going to work as good as if
Right,
you.
so, but I'll
work,
never
right?
obtain that, will I?
I don't know.
You know. If you, look, I worked hard, I hurt my knee the other day. You know what I hurt my knee doing? Training. I wasn't doing anything weird. I mean, it wasn't like, it's just overtraining. I can't, I'm a 50-year-old, right?
Okay.
I'm not gonna make a 2-hour marathon. I wasn't making it. And I wouldn't have done it at your age either. It's just, I wasn't born that way. And I'm not gonna be a 350-pound, 6'5" lineman. Why? Because I wasn't born that way. I don't have the genes. The real question is, what about virtue? Are some people born better than others? Are you a good person?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You're not just lying to me, are you?
No.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. If you, would you tell me if you weren't lying to me?
Yeah, I will tell
You, because you're so honest, because I'm an honest liar, right? Because liars tell you they'd be lying to you, right? Truth telling certainly is virtuous, but you do know that there are some people who just lie a lot. Can you name any of them?
In Argentina, we have kind of a lot.
In Argentina,
Yeah.
a lot of people lie?
Ooh.
Woo. All right, well, so are they just naturally worried? America, we like to tell the truth, right? Lie to me and tell me we like to tell the truth. Sure. I think a lot of people lie, right? There's a study out there that says we lie quite a lot more often than you think, just over the stupidest things too. Steal. You ever steal anything?
Nope.
Ever? Ever borrowed a pencil and didn't return it?
Oh, when I was a kid, I sweet, but
Okay, so she lied to me. She said
my
never.
mom said it
I
and
caught
I-
her in a lie, and she's a thief.
no, then I returned it because I feel guilty.
Okay,
I
so
go
you-
back and
So you didn't steal it.
no, I didn't need it.
But if you needed it, would you have kept it?
Okay, it's just like I take it.
So in your heart, you stole it.
Yeah, it was like no, that's wrong. So I came back and gave it.
Have you ever done anything wrong?
Yeah, a lot of things,
Okay, yeah, so we're not perfect. Are there people better than you?
of course.
Is it because they worked harder at it than you?
No,
They were born that way?
I don't know. They have.
So that's the question we're asking here, right? You see what Socrates is gonna do. He's gonna ask, what do you think?
I think a lot of people are either born naturally good or naturally evil.
You think some people are born naturally evil?
Yes.
So there's really nothing we can do.
You can curb it if you want, but there's cases where you can't
So-
change.
But if you're naturally bad, you're going to hell.
Right.
And God made you that way?
Well, yeah, but
God made you to go to hell? Are you a Calvinist?
we're
It's
no.
okay. I mean, Calvin
No,
Some
but-
Calvinists wouldn't even would say Calvinism when
But
Calvinist enough.
Christians believe in intercession, the intercession of Christ. Personally, I'm Muslim, so I believe in the intercession of somebody else.
Right, but you believe, okay, you do believe there's hope.
Right,
Based on whom? That God will intercede for us?
yes. So if you're naturally born evil, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hell.
Well, okay, then evil. Now, sinful and evil are two different things. To the Christian, sinful means, we've got the stain,
Right.
concupiscence, right? We're imperfect because we've got the blemish of, original sin upon us. And we do naturally sin, but there are some people who are really bad people.
Right.
There's sociopaths out there.
Right.
There are people that like hurting people and don't even care. We're talking, let's take
Ted Bundy,
Ted Bundy.
which is the example I was using for born naturally evil. He was always like that as a child.
Yeah, scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something go wrong with him?
No,
No, that's the way he should have been.
he was always like that.
Well, he's always like, that's descriptive. But I ask if he should have been that way. Just 'cause you're always like that doesn't mean you always should be that way. Could he have been different?
If he was born different, yes. But
So,
that was
what does that mean, but born different? I don't even know what that means.
If he was born to a different family, if he had different.
Well, his
genes.
parents, he's, and I've watched his last interview before he died,
Right.
like a couple hours before he was executed. Maybe you should watch it on YouTube, it's pretty interesting.
If he had
'Cause he's
been
charming,
completely.
And you'll wanna believe him. And you go, wait a minute, this guy's a psychopath. Okay? You know what a psychopath and a sociopath are? They're similar. Sociopaths and psychopaths, they're people who don't empathize with others' pain, so they can hurt other people and they don't care about it. People are means to an ends. Now, not all psychopaths kill you, okay? They could just hurt your career, climbing to the top of the corporate ladder, okay? Chances are, because there's a level of psychopathy out there, okay? And psychopaths, if they so happen to enjoy killing people, well, they'll do it, not care. But if they just want to climb to the ladder of success financially and hurt other people doing so, if that's what it takes, they'll do it, okay? Sociopaths are similar. The difference between the two is that the psychopath is allegedly born that way, genetically somehow hardwired that way. The sociopath is created that way through nurture. There's the nature versus nurture. That the psychopath somehow by nature is this harmful individual. That the sociopath is by nurture, the way this person was brought up, they're broken. Okay, so the kid who's, let's say, the pathetic thing I see this all the time, the abused kid who was put in a dog cage, beaten by his parents and malnourished, and they just grow up needing to survive, and so they learn to take, and you know what I mean, and they when they grow up, they don't care about other animals or humans, because why?
Because no one cared about them.
They didn't learn how to care for people, right? Mm-hmm. They were not taught what nurturing and love is and being cared for is. So all they learn is survival, okay? And then you get and so they go out into the world and they commit crimes and they don't care. The world was hurtful to them. Why do they care about, hurting others? And so there's a difference then. So, and so there you go. You go, okay, Ted Bundy says he was born into a family that was very, his parents were Christian.
Right.
They're like middle income people, very normal people. Now, of course, he is a psychopath. He could be lying, okay? You just don't know with these people, you don't know. I'd have to talk to his parents, I guess, to find out. But he said that, and then he said, but he goes, then why did you turn out the way you did? If you had such good parents. Well, he blamed it on pornography. He said he started reading pornography at a very young age, and crime magazines, these true crime magazines. he started, getting into this. You were juxtaposing sex with murder, right? Putting it together. And as a kid, I remember these books called True Crime or True Detective or something like that. And on the cover, they were stories. I don't know if they were real stories or just, true stories about crimes that happened, or if they were just made up because there were no pictures in it, so I didn't care. But on the cover, they always had somebody getting, tied up, and it was always some really virtually naked lady on there getting hurt. Okay, so they're juxtaposing, putting together sex and violence. Okay, so he said he was into that, but then he got into pornography, and to start off soft porn, and it got harder and harder, and to the point where he was getting into the real mean stuff, where people were wanting to kill people, and all that stuff. And he said, and so then he'd start fantasizing about it, of course, right? So with him, was he born that way, or did he create himself that way by practice?
He created himself.
Well, I mean,
then he goes on to say, let's add a little more to it, okay? That in prison, what he says is he found that all the other violent criminals in there had an insatiable appetite for pornography. Okay, just couldn't get enough of it. But not everybody who takes in porn goes out and kills people. Now, it may be the case that everybody that goes out and kills people in that manner does get into that stuff, but not everybody that gets into the stuff does, right? So let's go back to running. All the 2-hour marathoners do go out and run and train their butt off to get there, right?
Yeah.
But not all the people who run and train get to 2 hours. That'd be me. Okay? So there may be something in them, those people, those special people, that when they train, they become excellent at something. That is the running. Make sense? And even those of us who train may not attain that, but we will be better than we were. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go the opposite route. Not all of those people who watch porn will turn into vicious killers. But all those really sick individuals who reached deplorable deaths, right? Probably worked out and trained in their viciousness quite a bit. Does that make sense? And one thing's for sure, that even though I can train and I can get better than I was at running, people can also train and get very bad at what they do. They may not be as bad as Ted Bundy, but they're certainly working on being the worst person they can be. Make sense? So there's a bit of both, perhaps. And then there is training in virtue and righteousness, right? Paul himself, the apostle, says, train in righteousness. So yeah, not all of us are born into great homes. Some of us were raised by people who trained us to be early on. We're just by watching our parents were bad people, correct? Some of our parents are not the best parents in the world. We hope to be better parents than they were, better people than they were, right? And so maybe you could become better than they were, and better. Not all of us are going to be Jesus. Nobody is, right? But can we train like him in the sense that we will become more righteous than we were? It doesn't mean we're obtaining our own salvation. Our own salvation is obtained by Christ on the cross. But going back to virtue.
It's just like, you don't have to be the best as the things you want to do. For me, just yourself improving. Like, if you were only able to run, I don't know, 20 minutes, and you train, and now you can run 30 minutes, you have a virtue, just like in your
You've
scale.
improved, you've certainly improved.
Yeah, just not comparing with others, just like,
You could use them as examples of what to try to attain, right?
right,
Yeah, and then eventually when you get close enough, they can say, I'm gonna beat you. Right?
right.
Hopefully. I like that. Men like competition. I like competition. One day I want to be good enough, but I'm not gonna be as good as these guys, because I can only beat myself and people in my age group now. If even that anymore, after my injury. I just hurt my knee the other day. But, you know, the question is, you know, obviously I'm born a certain way, with a certain physique. I'm not 6'5", I'm not gonna be, 350 pounds, I'm not gonna be in the NFL as a lineman or anything like that. It's just not in the cards. Nature dealt its hand, here I am. Okay? But, I mean, I could lift weights and become bigger than I am, but I'll never obtain that. I'll never be the 130-pound gazelle that gets a 2-hour marathon. Just a little too big for that, okay? And even if I was 120 pounds, if I got down that way, I'm not gonna move that fast. But when we talk about virtue, are we born with it? Is it some part of our nature? Are we born to be good? Or evil? 50-50?
Yeah.
What should we be?
It just depends on the situation.
We could be bad in some situations. There are some situations where we can be evil.
Yeah.
Clearly you don't know what evil is then. I mean, we could be evil right now if you want.
Yeah.
The question is evil ever justified? And the answer to that is that by definition, evil is not justified. Okay, to be evil would be an unjustified type of act, right?
Mhm.
By definition, to some degree. But what? So yeah, but what does it mean to be a virtuous person to begin with? Is courage virtuous?
We can warn with a little bit of it, and it helps us to be better in what we decide to do, just like
Yeah.
a little point.
Well, that's good when we get to Aristotle for sure, but we want to know what that means. Is it good to give away your money?
No,
No?
to give away,
Yeah, give away your money. Is it good
Oh.
to give your money away?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it virtuous? Is the person that gives money to
Yeah,
charitable
I
causes?
just like to give my money to charity, to help and all that
All of
stuff.
your money?
No, not all, just a part of it.
How much?
I don't know.
How much is too much? How much is too little?
I don't know. I just,
I mean, some people give money and it goes, I'm writing this check here.
no.
Look at the check. Look at me. Look what I'm doing. You know, is that good? Is that
No.
virtuous? In fact, there's a
That is
parable
just
in the
like
Bible about that, right?
Using a good
Widow's
act-
mite.
Mhm.
What?
using a good action to make people believe that you're a
But
better
how much?
person.
How much is good?
Depends on the amount and the circumstances.
Okay, well, I mean, should you give no money ever?
No.
Should you always give money?
No.
No? Should always give money? So how do we do it? Okay, that's fine. So being charitable is, so sometimes, so there's frugality, right?
Mhm.
Miserly. What's miserly? Okay, we're jumping into Aristotle now. Okay, but I'm trying to think of virtues that, courage. Is it okay to be a coward? Yes or no? It's okay to be a coward?
No, it's not okay. It's just sometimes we have to feel fear to be brave.
Right, but fear is fear being a coward.
Okay. That's
I'm afraid of a lot of things. It doesn't make me a coward.
No, I know.
In fact, being brave might mean that you do stuff in the face of fear.
Yeah.
Courage, maybe doing that in the face of fear rather than, cowering in the corner and sucking one's thumb. And now, what about the guy who jumps off of cliffs, for the sake of the thrill, this base jumping stuff? Risking your life for the thrill. Is that bravery? Is that courage? Or is that foolhardiness? Okay. Now, some people are born they're virtuous, right? We hear these war stories about people on the battlefield where, their buddies get shot out there and they run to go save them. They, and they save everybody. They take out a machine gun nest where others are like, and I don't mean to put down the military men, I'm one of them, but I mean, they're scared. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to get the bullets, whizzing above your head. It pops when they go over your head. And then they snap. And the guy goes and he saves everybody's life. Wow, what a courageous act. Was he born that way? There's something inside him that was just born to do that virtuous act. Or did he create it in himself?
Some values that person learn make you take
So you're saying it's nurture again? You're big on nurture. I'm okay with that. You know what that means to me? If she's correct, it means we can all be much better people than we are. Would you agree?
I don't know.
Well, you sound like you know. You sound like you're saying, he learned some values, and because of that, he was this type of person. That means if I raise my children in a certain way, I should be able to expect certain things. That I should be very surprised if the outcome is different than the input.
No, it could be. It's just like maybe the way that some values that you have and you create will help you to be the person that you want to be.
Okay. Okay. So you do believe we can do this, enact change. We're not just born this way.
I can't believe we can do everything we want to.
Can you
just
fly? Without
not
wings?
in a natural way, but we want to fly and we create planes.
Can you fly without wings?
No.
Can you become a chicken?
No.
Okay. So not everything.
Okay, just the things that we can.
There are limits of things we could do.
Yeah.
So I'm just, these types of questions I'm saying, beware of the all and nothing statements, right? We can do anything. No, you can't do anything. You cannot do anything. Go lift that train over there, right? Like, okay, I can't do that. Okay, so you can't do everything you want, no matter how, you just try harder. No, I'm sorry. I cannot, be the all being of time, space, and dimension, no matter how hard I try. Okay? Make sense? Okay, let's take a different shift. Let's go back to analytic philosophy where we left off last week. Because I want to make sure we split the time appropriately. Last week we left off with talking about truth. What did we learn about truth? Did we learn anything about truth? We talked about knowledge. Oh, by the way, when I say last week we left off on truth, you would only know we left off on truth, you people here in this class, if you would have watched the video. Did you watch the video? The answer is no. Okay, so without having to have the whole conversation again, we had determined a little bit about knowledge. We said knowledge is justified through belief. We talked about different types of justification. Now this group should know a little bit about that discussion because you were here for a part of it, right? We talked about the different ways one would justify a belief. And then we asked the question, well, okay, we didn't define belief yet, by the way, but you have beliefs and you have to have a belief to have knowledge, right? We determined you cannot have knowledge unless you have a belief. Even that's debatable. I could probably come up with an idea that says, well, maybe you could be in denial, right? But even then, I would say you probably have a belief that you're just unaware of, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, or suppressing perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be in denial says you believe it.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of like Luke, you know, search your true feelings, Luke, you know it be true, as Darth Vader says, he's his dad, you know.
Mhm.
Okay, so, but then there's truth. Your belief has to be a true belief. You can't have knowledge and have a false belief. We talked about propositional knowledge, right? What's a proposition?
True or false?
A true.
It's a statement that's either true or false. By the way, that's also a test question. The correct answer is a statement that's either true or false, or you could have said a question that's going to be on the test. Okay? Both answers are acceptable, at least at this point. Once it's on the test, it's a statement that's either true or false. When we talk about having knowledge, I mean propositional knowledge. Take the proposition God exists. That is a statement that's either true or false. If I say no, I know God exists, it not only means that I believe God exists, it means that it is true that God exists. Okay? So the question we have to ask then is, what does it mean to be true? Or false, for that matter. Without typing anything in and getting the wrong Googled answer anyway, it'd be way too long. Give me, what does it mean to be true? If I say a statement is true, right? Proposition is true. I'll use those interchangeably, a statement or proposition, okay? Say something's true like that, what do I mean? What would you mean?
I would say that there's like certain specific information that just backs up that fact.
Yeah, look, I could have basic information. So for example, I could you go to court, okay? And you have the defense and you have the prosecutor, and they both have evidence that backs up their claims. So having evidence that just backs it up doesn't necessarily make something true. As a matter of fact, there's quite a bit of stuff out there that, propositions out there throughout history that have been shown to be false, even though we believed them to be true for a long time, and they had arguments to back them up. I mean, some make the claim, and had in the past, that the Earth is the center of the universe. Is that true?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because there's evidence that this.
What evidence? You know, when we flew out past the solar system, and they have this observation deck, and you could look down on the solar system and go, oh my God, we're not the center. Actually, the sun is. So we're going around the sun. The sun's not going around the Earth. There's no observation deck out there, is there? We've never gotten out of our solar system. We've not even gotten past the moon. So how do we know? We're all doing this from Earth. And when I step outside my door, I see the sun rising in the what? East. I see it setting in the... And do I feel the Earth moving?
No.
What looks like it's moving?
The sun.
Don't look like I'm moving, right? Huh. Well, that's evidence that tells me we're the center, right? What if space goes infinitely in any direction? Well, then we're all the center. There is no center because you can, right? The center has to do with you'd have to have a very specific fixed amount of space for you to be in the center of it, right? But if it goes on ad infinitum, there's no center, right? Would you agree? Everything would be the center.
I mean, I think they refer to the universe as like our universe, not like the universe out somewhere else.
There are more. You believe there's more than one universe?
I mean, we were to describe it to like more.
Let's just talk about our universe. Do you think the universe has an end to it? No, it just keeps going on ad infinitum. Then Earth is the center, and Mars is the center. The sun is the center, because you could go in infinite direction in any way, right?
Yeah, that's essentially true. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's claimed that we're not the center. That's kind of weird. Why would I believe that? That would only work if the universe has a limited amount of mass. Which, by the way, that seems to be what the consensus is at this point. Most people you've heard of the Big Bang Theory? Most people believe that the universe came into existence. It's finite in size, okay? And then we have stars in relation to each other, and the galaxies, and then we have planets in relationship to stars in those galaxies. And in that relation, we are the center. We are not the center. We are orbiting around Earth, right? Okay. They determined this by mathematical equations, by the way, that the Earth was, it was mathematically more simple to assume the Earth is not the center, that the sun is, right? But there were mathematical equations that were more accurate in predicting certain retrograde motions of other planets. Retrograde means they go backwards. They don't really go backwards, but when we look at Earth, Mars from Earth, it does this, because it's on its own path around the sun. So sometimes it looks like it's going that way when it's on the other side of the sun, and then it comes this way when it's on the same side of the sun as us. Okay? So we go, well, what's up with that? Well, they could predict where Mars was going to be with mathematical equations to great predictability, right? With great success. And so they had this complex system based off of the Earth being the center of the universe, right? Of the solar system. And they could predict, based on this assumption that Earth was the center, where Mars and the other planets would be. Great predictability. So why did they go to the sun-centered? Because it's simpler. I'm going to talk about this when we talk about what's called the epistemic virtues. Okay? Yeah, great stuff. So what's true? Is the Earth center of the universe? Or is it not the center of the universe? Is it true that the Earth is, let's go, is the sun is the center of our solar system? Is it true?
Our solar system?
Yeah, is the sun the center of our solar system? Are you sure? Now you may be sure, but is it true, I should ask?
I'm sure it is.
You may be convinced, but you don't know it's true. You believe that it's true, but you may be a bit confused by now,
No.
after I threw all that at you.
No, because I mean, you meant to say like our solar system, and I mean we like determine our solar system between like what we know.
Know what? Now, what do we know? We used to think that the Earth was the center of it, right? And they used to know that the Earth is the center of it. And then they determined that they now know that the sun is the center. Is it possible that might change? Possible. But you're saying it's true.
That the sun is the center of the universe.
Yes. Are you confused? Yeah. Well, now you don't know what is true, I guess. Let's go with something a little easier. We all see, I used to do this, I used to play this prank on my class, but you take the glass of water, you put the stick in it, and the stick bends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, the stick bends?
No.
Oh yeah.
Are you sure? You say yes, you're agreeing with me.
Like the
It is true, the stick bends.
no, not the stick, the image of it.
Oh, the image of the stick. Oh, interesting. We're gonna talk a lot about this one. Not today, but go ahead.
It only looks like it's being bent.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, tell me what you mean by the word true.
What do I mean by the word?
Because that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about the word truth. I'm giving you statements that you could argue with me about, give me your send me go, oh yeah, no, that's true.
I guess what I mean when I say true is that there is a substantial amount of evidence that...
Again, going back to evidence, remember we talked about the court? You could have a body of evidence that's clearly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I gave this, people believed that the Earth was the center of the solar system. They had evidence, right? They had mathematical equations. They backed it up with science, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were they right?
No.
Okay, so it wasn't true that the Earth was the center of the solar system, right? So bodies of evidence does not determine truth, right?
Right.
Truth may determine the evidence, but evidence doesn't determine the truth. That sounds kind of deep, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Truth determines the evidence, but evidence doesn't determine the truth. See, the evidence doesn't cause the truth. The truth should cause the evidence. The evidence should be the result of it being true. Does that help?
Okay.
I want to keep going without giving up my preferred answer to this. My camera person. What do you think?
Believing that you're right?
Well, again, belief is, a lot of us believe we're right. You've had disagreements, correct? And the other person believed they were right. You don't, are you both? No, something's true. One of you has it, one doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it then?
No, being correct. I don't know.
Correct, okay. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Probably, once I say it, you'll go, oh yeah, okay, I get it. It's not that hard. I mean, it really isn't. It's just, I'm just trying to get you to think deeply about this. You guys know it intuitively, whether you've had the words put to you yet. This is a shame, this should have been taught to you in second grade. I think there have been a great many debates that should not be argued even right now, put to rest, had we just started this discussion a lot earlier. What do you got?
I don't know.
That's good. It's a hard one. These easy questions they're hard because they're so simple. Go ahead.
Could you give another example of how you were using like the stack of evidence in a court case and like the the stick in the water, like trying to, so we could be able to, just like if you were to give another example, like do you need?
2 + 2 is 4.
It could have something related to our senses.
Does it have to be related? I mean, what does 2 + 2 have to do with my senses? I don't even need to see, hear, taste, touch, smell, or feel to understand the concept that 2 + 2 = 4.
For example, about the glass of water. If you see it, you believe it. So you're 100%.
But you don't believe it.
Yeah, if it is true, you have to believe it.
No, I don't. There's all sorts of
If
truths
not,
out there.
how are you gonna-
No, there are all sorts of truths out there that people don't believe. We know that right now, especially during political season. People are believing a lot of crazy stuff right now. I mean, just watch the news. Just watch the news to tell you, what they're telling us. Are we almost out of time? Wow. All right, next time we talk, we're gonna go over the 3 theories of truth. Correspondence theory of truth, the coherence theory of truth, and the pragmatic theory of truth. So we've got 3 ways we can define truth. Okay. Don't worry about looking it up. Let me give it to you, okay? Because it's no fun. It's just no fun. It's like if everybody gave you the score at the end of the game and said, don't worry about scoring the points yourself. We'll put them on the board and you win. Right? And you go, why would I play the game? Right?
Over there again?
Go to the gym, I'll lift the weight for you. The 3 are, if the film is still going, it is the correspondence theory of truth, the coherence theory of truth, and the pragmatic theory of truth. And there's really no need to go over too much. We'll go over it in our next class, okay? And I want you to read the Meno. Today is Tuesday. That was class 5. All right, thank you. Turn that off yet? Yeah.